Welcome to Season 5 of the Ferment Podcast, conversations about worship and transformation. Today's guest is well-known Vineyard worship leader and songwriter, David Ruis.
What up, David?
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the pod.
I'm in the pod.
You were in the pod. Hey, listen, I went back and looked this morning because I had a memory, but I couldn't get specific. You were the first episode we ever did.
I'm sad you forgot. I haven't forgotten.
Well, I knew it was early. I just couldn't remember. Was it the second one or was it the first?
It was the first one.
It was the first, baby. Well, you're finally back. It's good to have my Canadian vineyard father from the north down here in the Southlands.
There you go.
Yeah, baby. Well, it's good to have you here. I guess we should just do this first. I haven't spoken to you in a minute because of COVID.
Right.
Why don't you just give us a life update? I don't even know what seems pertinent in the Ruis world. Take us into the swirl.
I was on a podcast with Prophetic not that long ago, so
right.
I don't want to do too much of that. But yeah, no, life. Wow. Yeah, coming out of COVID. What the?
Yeah. What?
What was that? What was that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel good. Like my family, I've got my oldest and my youngest kids. My oldest brought a couple granddaughters into the mix, but my oldest and youngest are they're in LA, based out of LA.
Yeah.
Which is where we used to live. And then I have a daughter with her husband in a city called Hamilton, just outside of Toronto.
All right.
And they're settled there. They bought a house during the COVID kind of window. So they scored. They did really well. We've been out there to see them a couple times. And then my third daughter is in the city I live in, Kelowna. And
I hear Kelowna's nice.
You know, it's beautiful.
That's what I hear.
It's beautiful.
That's right.
It's beautiful. So it's over the Cascade and Coastal Mountains from Vancouver. So it's not coastal. It's in what they call the interior, but it's like a little microclimate kind of 80-mile long lake, orchards, vineyards.
Yeah, see, David, here's what I want to do.
Four Seasons playground.
I want to come up to that side of Canada because I want to drink wine with you in Kelowna. But then I want to ride mountain bikes because my oldest boys and I, we do together in particular is we like to ride mountain bikes. And the birthplace in many ways of modern mountain biking is Western Canada.
It is.
Squamish.
Yes.
That whole area.
Wow, you know Squamish. That's impressive.
Well, I only know it because of mountain biking. You have Whistler.
Yes.
It's the most famous mountain bike park in the world.
Yeah.
And Squamish and Kamloops. I watch this stuff on YouTube. Gotcha. And I'm like, I need to take my sons there before I'm too old.
Yeah. I'm 2 hours. We're less than 2 hours from Kamloops.
There we go. And
Kelowna, you look up Kelowna, all around there is biking trails.
That's everywhere. Well, everywhere. Too good. That's our little commercial for Western Canada. Everybody come on up.
Yeah.
No, hey, I thought maybe we would talk about a couple things today, David, and maybe they would be kind of like we're gonna shoot our shotgun here just a minute, and we're gonna scatter some shot here in a couple different directions. I think the first thing I want to talk about with you is maybe prophetic stuff here for a little bit, because I've been thinking on this for a while. Like, what is prophetic ministry? It's something that's in the vineyard. It's kind of like baked into our vineyardness because of our approach to the Spirit. But then sometimes our application of the prophetic, it has distinctives that I think are maybe important, and I would love for maybe us to talk through that.
Yeah.
So maybe we could just start here. What does it mean to be a prophetic person?
If I could if I could create a question around the question.
Please do. Cancel my question out and make
it's a
another
good question.
One. Yeah.
It's a great question, but I think the danger is, I think, to try to discover what it means to be a prophetic person out of understanding what it means that we are a prophetic people.
I hear the distinction.
We lose our way. So there's an interplay there, but I think the nature of the ecclesia, the nature of the called out community is prophetic in its very essence, because it's speaking to something beyond itself, and it should be resonating with the voice and heart of God. So take that into the context of faith community. One thing we like to say up sort of north of the border,
right,
is we describe kind of the prophetic dynamic within the faith community. For us in the Vineyard, we use a phrase. We say God speaks like a rain rather than like water from a spout.
Say more about that.
So it's that awareness. The Lord speaks to the community, and the rain can be falling all over society and culture. And so it's a layer within the concept of Jesus saying, I do what I see the Father doing. So it's like we respond to what we hear the Spirit saying. We see what the Father is doing. We follow where Jesus is leading. And there's no way, it's not a solo sport.
Right. I mean, Jesus even says, my Father, he's decent enough, he'll cause the rain to fall on the righteous and the unrighteous, right?
Yeah. And pulling from that sense as well, that it's abundant. It's falling everywhere. There's no piece of the pie that we're not getting if we don't get the word. Like, God will always come around, and if I don't say the word, someone else will get the word. That doesn't mean we minimize the place of catalytic people within community that can carry an essence that stirs the whole. But the most prophetic among us, and we're obviously there's hours and hours to unpack around what we mean by all those things, but assuming we're kind of somewhat pulling from the same lexicon, where was I going? The prophetic, there are people that would lean prophetically, but even at that, like, it has to be in community. There's no... It's funny. So I don't know if this is, we're dancing all over the place, but I was getting tired of it. I kept getting asking, you're partly, I carry a national role in the Canadian context, and you're sort of out and about in the church world and stuff. So particularly more in more the charismatic streams, but outside of that as well. David, what do you think the Lord's saying to the church? Those types of questions.
Yeah. Going, please tell us the one word.
Yeah, kind of thing. And I'm like, I can hardly figure out what he's saying in my life. Like, I have no idea what he's saying to a country, let alone the world.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I'm sure there's thread. If we sat down and chatted, I'd go, oh man, there's some resonance here. And then I was going to the book of Revelation and going, oh, so Jesus is speaking to the church. When he's giving a word to the church, he ends up sitting down and writing 7 letters to 7 different churches in 7 different contexts, in 7 different spaces, and they're all living it out at the same time. So there's no real one size fits all. The one size fits all is the biblical text, and
Jesus himself. He's the word. He is the word, right?
Saying yes to him, and following him and becoming like him. That's the one size fits all. Now that can take all kinds of applications and all of that. And so I think we're learning, we can't shy away from an in-breaking aspect of the kingdom is the voice of God.
Yes.
Along with healing, along with those moments of incredible spirit encounter, along with the songs that just flesh out and give voice to things that God's speaking to us, or things that we're learning, things we're saying back to him, the intimacy. But he does crash in with his voice as well. But it's all for the purpose of being, a prophetic presence. So if it doesn't translate into presence...
Say more about that. What do you mean? Like the way we show up?
The way we show up, the things we speak to. I'm desperately trying to bring in my memory, and I don't have it in front of me here. I should have maybe, because I don't even have my phone. But Brueggemann has what I feel is a great distillation of what it means to be a prophetic people. And he says, we speak hope where there's despair. We speak, I'm making this, these are my words now. There's hope. We speak hope where there's despair. We speak truth where there's deceit, and we can bring voice to lament where there's denial. It's kind of something along those. And I think, wow, that's like really, really cool. It's like, been reflecting about this for years now, and several of us, across the vineyard communities, even internationally, I think we thought the lean was to be culturally relevant. But I think if we look back, take the nostalgic lens off things, okay, what's the essence of what was happening when our movement was birthed, the different ebbs and flows of the seasons of culture and stuff. The bottom line is what cultural relevance should mean, and I think meant, was authenticity. I'm not wearing a tie because I never wear a tie. I'm singing in a certain musical style or expression because this is what I do all the time. And so I'm bringing truth to the Lord. I'm worshiping in truth. I'm worshiping from a place of authenticity, integrity, vulnerability. It's my understanding of truth there in the text in John 4 isn't knowledge. It's non-duplicitous. Oh boy, I screwed that word up. But it's like it's not bifurcated. It's whole. It's honest. I'm not hiding anything. There's no pretense. And I think that was the revolutionary moment, not just the vineyard, but of course the vineyard playing a pretty big role in that, like going, whoa, we can be real people in the presence of a real God. We can express real emotion. Cultural relevance, it seems, has now become more about how to be cool, how to be noticed in the culture, versus, no, we are to be a prophetic presence. We are to be a prophetic people. We are to be speaking truth. We are to be opening revelation to things that we're there to model, to bring light to, not because no one else has access to it. There's no secrets in the kingdom. I think Jesus made that very clear. He says there's no secrets, So this isn't about some elite core of people that know more about God than anyone else, or we've got some direct line into a Gnostic space that no one else can discover unless if they talk to us or part of us. But it creates, I think the true essence of being a prophetic person or a prophetic people is in whatever you're giving articulation to, whether it's verbal or artistic or written or preaching or counsel or advice, when it has that prophetic essence to it, I think what it does is it awakens something in people that goes, oh my goodness, I've always known that. I just didn't know how to say it. Or I know that's true. And if I could write a song, that's the song I would have written. Like it's got that real. So that's to me where the text then comes alive. Like it stirs encouragement, it stirs hope, it stirs correction where it needs to be. It brings things into alignment. And so we are to be a prophetic people in that regard. And then as a prophetic person in the midst of prophetic people, that's always the call, is back to alignment with the heart and purpose of the Lord.
Yeah.
Boy, that was a long
I like it though.
But
there's many things that I hear you saying, but one of the things I heard you say, and you said it right at the beginning, was this distinction between a prophetic person, which is what I asked about.
Yeah.
You went immediately to people.
Yes.
And you gave us this image of rain, which means it's everywhere. It's on all of us. And so I guess I want to ask one more question, and then maybe we'll do another couple things here. Talk to me about the role of the church, and you've said a few things about community, but I'm thinking even like Paul's text in Corinthians 14, where he says, test the word. Yeah. Like to see if it's true, which is
communal discernment.
Communal discernment. Say something about that, because, and I guess this is why I'm asking that question. Paul's definitely saying in Corinthians 14, hey, the Spirit is with you guys. You should hope that prophecy would happen even more than tongues. And honestly, you should let the prophets and the community have a voice in understanding what that is, over against maybe this idea of like the man of God who knows the one thing, and I brought the word. Right. And if I were to reflect back to your image earlier the fire hose or the garden hose.
Right.
It's a rain from above, not a garden hose.
Right.
So just say something about communal discernment. How does that happen? How do we do that? What's been your experience in your life of listening through other people?
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. I'll start just because of, this is a Vineyard podcast and it's kind of fun to talk about some of the journey. So before I was in the Vineyard, the first gathering that I came to in February of 87, I still had my Baptist kilt on, and I was, I was very much in that vein, although very open. Obviously that's why I was at this gathering. But there was a moment that has marked me, that caused me to trust the Vineyard in a very deep way. And there was this moment where worship was going. I'd never been in worship like that. I'd never been in a Christian gathering the size that I was in. Just didn't. Everything was strange and yet familiar. It was like terrifying and yet, wow, I just feel like I never want to leave.
Yeah.
And in the middle of all this craziness, I think it was one of the evening things. It was the first time they did Signs and Wonders 1 and 2 back to back. So it was like a full week conference. It used to be like more like weekend seminars. So it was pretty intense. Like it was a lot of stuff going on. And some guy in the old Vineyard space by Disneyland there in the big warehouse jumps up on this chair. And this is all new to me. I figured out since he's probably deeply from a Pentecostal tradition of some sort. He's up on the chair and he's like, "Thus saith the Lord, thus saith the Lord." And the worship team's just driving over him with it. The music's like they just wouldn't. "Thus saith the Lord," and he's so insistent. He just keeps pushing and pushing. Right. So there was enough of a space where, and I don't know, it was Eddie up there or someone, and they just kind of just like, oh my goodness. So they just kind of let it. Wimber was up on the platform as well. And he gives this word. I don't even know what the word was, whatever. It was very flowery, lots of King James, all that. That wasn't the issue. But so Wimber walks up and he just kind of stands there and is looking around. And there's like 3,000 people, whatever it is. And he goes, "Well, church, do we think that was a word from the Lord?" And the whole flipping place goes, "No!" No, I'm not kidding. So
people started to say no,
just in unison, one big no. Like it wasn't like no. It was like no, and it was like the poor guy. You can see him just shrinking, right? And he's exposed because he's standing on his chair.
Oh my gosh!
But again, what made me trust the Vineyard was immediately, like there were people running up, there was ministry people. Gosh. They pulled him down off the chair. But it's like, okay, Kat, like if you're gonna like demand that we hear, okay, we'll discern this thing.
Yes.
And I saw many times, and have been able to do this many times where we go, we can't be afraid to discern when we have sort of. I make a bit of a distinction. I don't. That story's got you. No. Honestly, that is seared in my memory.
Brilliant.
I'll never forget that moment. And
I just love that the crowd just followed Wimber. Was like, no.
Well, but the beauty is, I don't think they followed him because he legit asked, and it was like now, like it just wasn't resonating,
gosh,
and it was like
so
to be able to slow down. Hebrews says there. I can't remember the exact chapter and verse. Hebrews says something to the effect of you should be on milk by now, or you should be eating meat by now. But my understanding of the text is like you can't, like all you can absorb is milk because you have not practiced discernment. And I think when someone comes up and they've got something if we don't practice communal discernment in our house groups, with our families, in our prayer times, with the things we're preaching, take just down the line, and practicing it and being comfortable with the give and take in community. Yeah. 2 or 3 speak. There's back to the Corinthians text, right? Yeah. So it's like someone has a word.
Yeah.
Someone's sitting down. If someone sitting down gets another piece of the word, the text says the one who is speaking should stop. That is so contrary to charismatic culture. I have the word of the Lord. You listen to me. It's like, no, stop talking. There's another piece here that you're not seeing. And it could come from anyone in the community. Now, that doesn't invalidate when maybe people in leadership are feeling some things, like maybe someone's been praying more, but we need all the pieces for us to actually land in a place of safety and of discernment. So we try to practice discernment, because if you haven't practiced discernment in the small things, and I don't mean that as less important, when the big things hit, we have no idea what to do.
We don't have muscle memory.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
So we haven't practiced discernment with words of knowledge. Well, we let things slip and slide. That's just a good person with a good heart. We don't take the time to truly disciple, lean into spiritual formation, and cultivate discernment in the community, not just call forward those with a gift that steps in and can really, that's a whole other conversation.
Sure.
But if we haven't practiced that, then how do we know when the big things, when war is upon us, or there's a political election staring us down the face, or whatever? We have no chops.
Yeah.
And then everybody's trying to find the word of the Lord, but we can't get to the meat because we haven't practiced discernment. And we do ourselves an incredible disservice by just being faithful in those small things. And I think it's important. I think we lost our way at some point in the vineyard where we conflated word of knowledge and word of wisdom with prophetic.
Say more about that.
Well, I think what we were really good at initially was awakening the word of knowledge. Like, okay, something's going on here. Maybe the Lord, maybe there's someone that needs healing for this, that, thus, and so. And then we got wowed when there was sort of another facet of being a prophetic people that was more this sort of bigger picture, macro kind of eagle's eye kind of vantage point on various things. And I mean, sometimes it was even like like an earthquake or this and that.
Yeah.
And we had everything all so conflated, because the word of knowledge has almost pretty much built-in communal discernment. Either you got a headache or you don't.
Yeah.
Either you're getting healed in the moment or you're not.
I like this. This is good, David. Keep going.
But the other thing can be so macro and so big, you don't know how to hold it. So my preference is that stuff shouldn't be said from a stage. And things that have massive implications on someone's life, we need safe spaces where we can discern. So I was at something in mid-90s and this massive word over my life and all this stuff. And it's not even the point whether some of that happened or not. I was so vulnerable. And then everybody's thinking, that word's got to come to. How many children did we do that to in various seasons and waves of.
You're the generation.
All that stuff. And it's like, whoa, let's just pump the brakes. We're not raising the great end-time combine of the harvest of God. Like we have children that need to trust the voice of the Lord, and we need to cultivate it in spaces and places where we can learn together and discern together. So it's like, if you want to give a word to, of big import like that, and especially if it has implications on people's lives, we can talk about that in the back room. But I see that now the prophetic is brought into a place where it really needs to be. Now we can slow down enough. We can go, hey, I'm not sure about that one part. Or, and even if I have the word of the Lord or whatever, I should never breach the vulnerability of whoever's receiving that, whether that's a group of people or it's an individual. And that's where leadership can get quite damaging if we're ramming people through a gauntlet of what we feel the Lord. And then a couple texts, Colossians 2, Paul says, "Beware of those who come," and they go on and on about what they've seen and heard. They go on and on about their revelation. To me, as I distill the text, the warning then takes us this, because what you're watching for is this. If they make you feel like you're disconnected from Jesus because you don't see what they see, or you need to buy their book to get the deeper insight so that you'll
Right.
really, whatever, or
Special-
buy their CD.
special days.
It's all that
Special
stuff.
ways.
It's all in there, right? It's like, but you end up, there's one of the translations says they make you feel like you're disqualified. So they're giving a prophetic word, they're whatever, they've got revelation. But it leaves you with that really bad thing in the pit. Oh man, I'm a mess. Like I got to get what they have to get to God, or I have to do what they say.
Or I have to stay connected to them.
Or I have to stay connected to them.
In a very unhealthy way.
There you go.
Like codependency.
Yeah. So then Paul brings the hammer down, and I leave this with him, and it's a scary place to move into this level of discernment, but he says, just calm down. They're the ones that are actually disconnected from Jesus. You're not the one. And it's that beautiful sort of way that, the text that reveals the living word, Jesus himself, like it's constantly flipping around. Acts 16 is one of my favorite stories. Paul has, scholars tell us 30 people or whatever that are traveling with him. And I can't remember all the places, but it's like, oh, the Spirit, like it literally says, the Spirit said, go to Phrygia, which I often thought was in the heart of Canada. Phrygia. No, just kidding. But it's like, go there. And they go there, and it's like, oh, no, we're not supposed to be here. And then, let's go to Byzantium or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, we head over there. Oh, no. And then the Spirit of Jesus says, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, and you're just going, this is like, so to me, it's the journey of discerning. And they're following that step-by-step guidance of the Spirit till they land in Macedonia. What happens? Paul has an open vision. It's a guy standing, come over here. Over here. The Macedonian call, is the subtitle in all our Bibles that used to have paper and binding and all that stuff. But I love what happens. Luke wraps the whole this story, and he says, after we concluded together that we should go, we went to Macedonia. So here's Paul, capital A on the t-shirt, big apostle. He has an open vision. Now, I'm sure that carried a lot of weight, but it still was brought into the context of the team, and they concluded together that they should go, and then they went.
And you saying that reminded me even of Acts 13. And when Paul and Barnabas are set out.
Exactly.
It's the church, right?
Yes.
The church, it's not Paul.
While they were worshiping the Lord and fasting, it says the Spirit said, set
so
aside.
after they had fasted and prayed, they placed their hands on them and said,
Exactly.
Yeah, there's that communal thing
100%,
again, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And Paul, even before that, the story's told in Galatians 2, where he's been in the desert, he's been wandering, he's had this incredible conversion. He feels he should go to the 10 Gentiles, but he goes to James, Peter, and John, and he submits it. And and then I think obviously this is connected to this
It's
passage
a through line all the way through the whole text, right?
It's a through line. It's a through line, and it keeps us real. It keeps us anchored. It keeps us accountable.
Yeah.
And it keeps the church vibrant because we all have the sense we're hearing the Lord together. So in our Canadian vineyards, we have what we call a listening team that sits at a national level, and we just glean stuff from all over the country. And it's a great team of people that are just distilling and praying and discerning. And we go, wow, my gosh, wow, this thread just keeps popping up here and there and everywhere. So when we come into various national contexts, we can come with a pretty significant sense of confidence. While someone in Vancouver was hearing da-da-da-da, over in Halifax, the same thing was happening. Then up in Yellowknife, they had a prayer meeting where this was, and it's like, okay, now, all right, the threads are coming together. We don't know what the Lord might be saying to the whole Canadian church, but we're getting some real clarity about what he's inviting us together as a people to step towards. So let's go. Let's go do it.
Okay, let me ask one more question, then we'll shift gears. It occurs to me, even at communal discernment, there's this one part that's maybe around the idea of is it God? Is it not? Then there's maybe another level that's like, well, what is he saying?
Right.
Okay, then we get what is he saying.
Right.
But then there's this maybe third level, which is what should we do?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get a word and you like you mentioned before, truth where there's deceit,
Right.
hope where there's despair. It unlocks the thing that you knew but you didn't have the words.
Yeah.
It's that presence of Jesus. Yeah. But then there's that other part that's application.
Yeah.
Like what should we do?
Yeah.
Say something
Yeah.
with us about application, because sometimes that feels like that's where we kind of get.
Yeah,
that's
we can.
hard.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then there's also, should we do it now?
Right.
Should we do it later?
Right.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to say there?
Well, I think what capsulizes what you're describing is the end game. I think the end game of, let's just use the terms because they're helpful in this context. The end game of the prophetic is wisdom. So it's not even about being right or wrong. What is the next step? And that's what you're getting to. So that might be a step of what are we doing with our building? That might be a step of how do we care for these immigrant families that have just come into the community? What's our wisest way forward? What's gonna do the most good for the most people? I think is always the end game of, because it builds up the community, it encourages the community, it strengthens the community, and so I think sometimes we treat prophecy like a crystal ball or something.
Yeah.
We think it's supposed to give us these answers, or it's supposed to. So it's not a crystal ball. It helps us calibrate our compass. And it's not a roadmap as much as it is, again, a compass. It's a different posture. So, and we might just have clarity for one step. And then when we take that step, all of a sudden we realize, oh, I've got more understanding of even what that original word was. Sometimes it only really makes sense 15 years down the line.
Right.
And so sometimes I think the prophetic is not here's what I used to say, and I haven't thought of this for a while, and I'll just throw it out there for discernment.
Right.
Maybe you'll get a bunch of response. But to me, the prophetic is always an invitation to rest. Mm. It brings peace. It brings wholeness. It brings shalom. If it stirs frenzy and the sense that I now have to make something happen, it probably isn't how God, at least, is trying to talk to me right now.
Right.
Like he's inviting me to lean into confidence that I'm seeing it's back to full circle, right? I do what I see the Father doing.
Well, one of my spiritual fathers used to say, the Lord leads and the devil drives. Mm. It's just a little tiny maxim, but it's been helpful in my life, right?
Absolutely.
Like God tends to be invitational.
Yep.
And the devil oftentimes, or just the enemy is pressure, pusher.
Yep. And you pull that to, communal spaces. I mean, if of late, especially the last 5+ years or whatever, awareness kind of our Quaker tendency, our Quaker, what that was the Quakerism that was put in the DNA of who we are, that's that space of waiting. I've often taken a lean to a book by Alan Kreider, I think is his name. Yeah. Historian. A book called The Patient Ferment of the Early Church.
It's amazing.
It's a great book. And the concept. I remember, kind of pulling from some of the Vineyard music catalog, a song, The Slow Kingdom
Slow Kingdom Coming?
Slow Kingdom Coming.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. I think it's a really solid piece of work musically and theologically. But I know some people got pretty...
Yeah,
what is that? Like, wait a minute. Like,
people were upset. So I actually...
Ooh, should I be saying this on this
it's
podcast?
Cool. No, this is cool. So this is interesting because it's just one of those distinctives. This was before I was the director of Vineyard Worship, whatever, But I'd been asked to make this record, and we were in song select mode, and one of our Vineyard Worship...
Are you an author on that?
No.
Oh, I didn't.
No. But one of our Vineyard Worship leaders, J.T. Meyer, and who I just love, it's dear friend, and such a great pastor now in the Cleveland area. But JT had listened to a sermon from Phil Strout, and Phil has this odd way of being prophetic in his own Philness,
Yep.
But Phil had brought this word about, sometimes God's kingdom is a little bit slow coming, but it's always on time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not this instant thing. And
100%.
this unlocked something in JT and maybe a couple other people, and they wrote this tune. And I thought, man, when they were finished with it, I thought, man, that's a song that could only be written in our little tribe. It's just it encapsulated something of us, and it was maybe a little challenging for some people whose maybe theological bent is, well, if it's God, it's realized. It's now.
Yep.
It's
Yep. Yeah, and when we bring it around, the prophetic people, when it's happening in a person, let's just take those, that are wired that way. Like there's just some people that are just wired. They're mystics. They're, that kind of space, and they're necessary in the community. And I think a lot of pastors panic and they're not quite sure what to do with all that and give it space. But if we can anchor ourselves into community and then combine that with the patient work of God, that the essence sometimes of the intensity of the prophetic at moments can make everything feel so imminent and now and must and have to, and it's like, and that can be devastating.
Yeah.
And that's where the combination of courage and trust, in the context of community, to lay that at the feet of, the proper places to discern this and apply. I think then the challenge, though, is for leaders and those that have to end up making the hard call and decisions out of these kinds of things, to take it seriously.
Yeah.
To not be afraid of corrective discernment. To not be afraid of when the Spirit just goes, whoa, just pump the brakes here, or because that can be an incredible gift to the community.
It can be.
And so I think allowing the prophetic nature of who we are as a people to be set in a context of feasting and of joy and of worship and of it's not just a few people off in a corner hearing from God, or someone that just can't stop having dreams and they have nowhere to put them and they don't know what to do, and it just backlogs, and then all of a sudden they're one Sunday, they're launching in the middle of a church meeting and just like flame throwing the whole place. like we need to have places where it can be purged, cultivated. And,
well, David, that reminds me of a story from my past. I had a season, especially, I've had a few seasons in my life where God's prophetic thing was around me and on me. I would even use that, on me, in a very strange way, like in a kind of like a whoa. And one of those moments was when I was maybe 18 and my mother had just been hit in a car accident, almost died, and I was driving home from the hospital and I had an open vision. Like I'm driving down the interstate and the windshield just goes away, and I see this thing that I won't go into it because it's just like whatever. But when that was over, I was like, what just happened? I was so, and then there's the presence of God.
Yeah.
And because I was young and I was a zealot, man. Right. I was just a zealot, and I literally didn't know what to do, and I thought God was saying, this is now.
Yeah.
It was like the future. I understand this now a little bit, because it really is. Like if God shows up, the future is showing up.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, this is now. What I've realized now as a 44-year-old person is that this is a word over my life. And it's going to take my whole life
for it to unfold.
For this moment of open vision to unfold. And I can relax. But I mean, I without even going into the whole story, I didn't screw anything up big, but I've definitely made myself look like an idiot for more than a few weeks, because I just thought, it's now. It's just now. And I just didn't have any of this that we've been talking about on board at all. I was just clueless.
I think it's great. And I think maybe back to the thing too, the people, if we understand, the Lord will and does and can, speak to all of us, our tendency to try to find the prophet who has the word for the church or my life or whatever begins to ease. And that's important. Yeah, it's important.
Love that. Dude, I was going to ask you some other stuff, but I actually...
Yeah, we've toasted the time here. I don't even know what.
Yeah,
it's great. This is good.
And we could do more, but I actually think this is a complete thought.
I love it. I think
we should just say la.
Yeah.
In this moment.
Yeah.
David, thanks for coming on.
Hey everyone, Casey Corum here, producer of the podcast. Thanks for listening. As always, if you've been enjoying the podcast, here's a few ways you can help us. First of all, leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice. This helps more people find us. Also, connect with us on social media. Instagram at the Ferment Podcast and Twitter at FermentCast. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. See you next week. Peace.